Well, here's something that you didn't know. 2 of those special atomic bombs haven't gone off.
All right, so you ready to get into it? Or do you have any questions, any shit, whatever? Let's just go. Okay. So, all right, first, I want to welcome everybody to the first episode of FantaCTE. If you are looking for in-depth player analysis and expert fantasy football advice, you are in the wrong place.
Go somewhere else.
No, yeah, you're gonna find
Say
it.
that.
Let's start with some introductions. Upper left-hand corner. You want to go first, Lonnie?
Sure. I'm Lonnie Cox. I was a god-awful football player in real life. I did really well at the park. But once I put pads on, I was probably the worst player in Palmetto history, who, by the way, Palmetto High School just signed their 5-star defensive lineman signed to UM yesterday, committed to UM. So very, very happy and excited to see that. So
nice. And you were also in Remember the Titans, right? You were also that guy from that movie.
Exactly, right. I am the offensive lineman who gets along very well with black people, which is very true to life for me.
Which is yeah, and fantastic. Perfect.
Except you got a lot more playing time.
Nice transition to introduce Vital on the bottom.
The perfect transition. I'm Vital the Juice. My nickname is Juice, and that's the only thing I share with him. No athletic skills, not like that anyway. Yeah, but that's it. I'm a pretty good fucking fantasy football player, but aside from that, that's where it leaves it.
All right. And I'm Nick Masick. I'm here in Pompano Beach, Florida. Vital, you're in West Palm Beach, right?
Oh yeah, West Palm.
We are all South Florida, and we're all South Florida comedians. That's how we know each other. That's how we met. Lonnie's based out of Miami.
Yes.
Vital, West Palm, and I'm right in the middle in Pompano Beach. But we all perform all over South Florida. So, and that's pretty much, so our background, a recap. Last year, we all three played in a fantasy football league together, right? And that's kind of what spawned the idea of doing this fantasy podcast. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but none of us placed in the top 3 last year.
I think I was the third, wasn't I?
No, I mean, regular season you were, but you got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs.
No, I didn't. I thought I lost in the third round game. You know what? I had two leagues, and I get them mixed up in my mind.
You did not place in our league, 100%. I checked.
No?
I didn't get cash. I was close. I got robbed, bro.
You guys both had really good seasons, but I think you both got knocked out in the beginning of the playoffs. I didn't even make our playoffs. I was in the losers bracket, which was super embarrassing as the commissioner first year.
Sure.
So thank you all very much. So those are that's just a little credit background for your expert fantasy advice for anybody who's here looking for legitimate fantasy.
I mean, it makes me feel better that I got my draft projection that I was going to win, at least. That told me I was going to win.
You did draft very well. I think the problem with your team, though, was that you had Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson.
Yep. Because remember, when I picked up Lamar, nobody knew anything about him yet. He had no body of work.
Right, but you also refused to trade either one of them
because nobody gave me anything close to his worth. Like Vital offered me some fucking second-round running back from Detroit. Yep. I'm like, fuck you, bro.
Because you don't need him. You don't need to. But you could have used a running back to get you those points, right?
But I'm also not going to give him. I'd rather him sit on my bench
and not
give me any points than give somebody else the fucking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it worked out really well.
You screwed both of us.
Yeah, it worked out great for you in the first round.
But let me tell you what, though, when Patrick Mahomes got hurt, I think he missed like 4 games last year.
Oh yeah,
Lamar Jackson stepped up big time. You know?
It wasn't the worst move, but also you probably could have done something to maybe push you over the top.
Yeah, you know, the one offer that I think maybe it was you, Vital. You offered me Aaron Jones from Green Bay.
Yeah, I was desperate. I really needed a QB, man.
He had like a couple good games, but he wasn't like solid enough for me to.
He was just scoring, but not yards. They would just use him if they weren't in scoring position, it was like not a good game for Aaron Jones.
But then there was one game he had like 4 touchdowns and scored like 40 points. You know, so.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give you an actual stat, although we're not going to do this very often on the show. Aaron Jones, second most touchdowns of any running back last year. I'm pretty
really
sure.
Yeah. So trading.
Now, part of it was a couple games that he just like went off, but you're guaranteed to win those games, and if you're like 1 or 2 games shy. So anyway, yeah, Aaron Jones was a fucking monster last year, touchdown machine. But somebody was talking to me about like, I don't know about Aaron Jones. He's okay. He's not that great. And I'm like, his runs, the only reason he doesn't have a lot of yardage is because his runs just keep getting cut off by the end zone line. Like, that's why every time he touches the ball. So
he's also Green Bay. In Green Bay, they don't run the ball that often, really, ever. Aaron Rodgers was their like leading rusher for like years.
Aaron Jones, though, also an excellent receiver, and probably this year going to be the feature of their offense. So
sure. Something
to think about looking forward. All right, so last year, you just recapped now, did you guys do any other leagues last year besides the one that we did?
Yeah.
What were your leagues? What else did you do?
I had a 12-man league with some coworkers, and I think I placed 4th in that one. I got to the elimination round, about the same.
All right.
Cool. Yeah, and I did a 10-man on NFL.com. I had the first pick in the draft. And I placed 3rd.
All right, that's pretty respectable. Not bad.
Yeah.
I play in a league with my cousins, based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like, it's 3 of my cousins and then all their friends who grew up with them. And I think that's last year was my 3rd year doing that, and I placed 3rd for the 2nd year in a row in that league. So respectable, but nothing special. And then I did like a 4-person league with my roommate and one of my good buddies and my neighbors, because like just my buddy was like desperate for a league, and he was like, let's do something, so I actually put together this 4-person vampire league, which we'll talk about vampire leagues later on, which it was actually kind of fun to do for a small group of people. It's like we made it interesting, and I'll talk more about that for like an option of different kind of league plays. All right, so you guys, let's start with some off-season news. What do we got so far that we want to talk about? Probably the first thing we should talk about is opt-outs, right? They just finalized opt-outs yesterday. What did you see? Have you guys paid attention? Do you know who the big names? There aren't a lot of big names.
Not a lot of big names, but like Al Wilson from the Dolphins opted out.
Yep.
Star Lotulelei comes to mind. Who else?
I was thinking Albert Wilson was hurt most of the season last season anyway.
He was.
It's not a big loss for the Dolphins. But he's
he's a huge asset to them. Like, he really, he's a deep threat, and he has great hands. But he hasn't been very consistent. But when he shows up big.
Yeah, he can move.
Yeah.
He's a guy who like 1 or 2 games he might explode and give you a big week, and in a deeper league he was maybe worth picking up. I'd like to take a flyer on. But actually both of their potential number 3 receivers opted out. It was back-to-back days too. First it was what's
Allen Hurns,
and then right after him the next day Albert Wilson. So now they're like scrambling to see who their 3rd receiver is going to be.
I feel like Allen Hurns was one of the best receivers in the league, and then I haven't seen him play in like 4 years,
Yeah, he was kind of a lost guy in Dallas last year.
Right.
Or the last 2 years. I don't know how many years he was in Dallas.
I think he was in Dallas for 2 years.
Offensive linemen opt out too?
Yeah, I think like half of the Patriots team has opted out. Most of the defense has opted out so far. One of our tight ends. It's you can see if anybody's watching the video, I have my Patriots hat on. I live in South Florida. I grew up in New England. I'm a Patriots fan. Even that being said, I'm still rooting for the Bucks this year. I'm a bandwagon Brady guy. Yeah, that's right.
Loyal.
So much fun to watch. And I really want the Patriots to completely tank the entire season so we can get Trevor Lawrence next year. So I just became the least popular person on the podcast.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the move, man. I think you might have all you need in Cam, to be honest.
So that's a good point. Cam Newton is a pickup. I just don't. All right, so Cam Newton's one of the big moves. Tom Brady was one of the other big offseason moves. Players we were going to talk about that are going to be fantasy relevant for sure.
Man. All those Tampa Bay receivers value just skyrocketed, dude.
Yeah,
absolutely. He likes to spread it around, though, and I actually think Ronald Jones is going to be a guy this year who could potentially pop out of the backfield. So they said his offseason has been unbelievable. He's worked on pass catching and all that kind of stuff. So,
how many are they a running back committee, Tampa Bay?
They're saying just some of the recent stuff out of camp from Bruce Arians is that he's saying Ronald Jones is going to be the guy.
Okay.
Now, they're still going to use other guys, but they looked like, and towards the end of the season last year, he was starting to jump off the screen, kind of like an Aaron Jones.
Sure.
In that way that he's shifty, he's fast, and if he improves his pass catching, Brady's going to love him. So,
I just have PTSD from Patriots running backs, so I'm not like I get very.
As you should, but this is not the Patriots offense. Remember?
That's true. It's hard to snap my mind out of it.
Yeah. Now you think, I don't know, I'm not sold on Cam Newton being great. What do you guys expect? I mean,
Not being great? Cam Newton
this year.
Oh yeah, I disagree.
Not being great. He's a great talent. He's a great player.
Let me just remind you with one thing. Jacoby Brissett. Okay, Jacoby Brissett played for the Patriots, and I don't know who they played, but he started the game, and by the end of like maybe the first quarter or halfway through the second quarter, they were up, I think, 28-7. It might not have even been 7. So, the Patriots are a system, man. Tom Brady, I'm a firm believer he's a good quarterback, but he's a system QB. If you put an Aaron Rodgers in a Patriots jersey, he'd have 8 MVPs and Super Bowl titles.
Get out of here. That's
no. Tom Brady said that.
I agree.
Aaron Rodgers has choked in the playoffs more times than I can count.
Tom Brady himself said that if Aaron Rodgers was a Patriot, he would have 12 championships.
Choked in the playoffs numerous times. We'll agree to disagree about this. Aaron Rodgers, regular season, phenomenal. He's choked in the playoffs a bunch.
I disagree.
I disagree also. I'm trying to remember. I mean, they got walloped by the Falcons. There wasn't really room for that. They got knocked out by
Seattle. They've been knocked out by the Giants when they were a number 1 seed.
But think about the Packers, bro. The Packers are not a well-rounded team. Like, they shouldn't even be there, really. Mm-hmm. Like, they have really bad offensive line play. They have had no running back for a long time. Their receivers are basically no names. You've got Devontae Adams, who Aaron Rodgers turned into a star.
The years I'm talking
about. What about, does Nelson still play for them?
No, he's retired. I think he's retired this year, finally. No, I'm talking about the 15-1 Packers that got knocked out. I'm talking about the team that lost to Seattle when they were up by like 3 touchdowns. I mean, are
you talking about the Seattle team that's one of the best teams in the history of the NFL?
Well, yeah, but you got a 3 touchdown lead. You should be able to take care of business. I
don't know.
Okay. A lot of teams would disagree.
You think Rodgers is better than Brady? We'll see what Cam does this year.
I do.
I'm not sold on everybody around Cam, and I'm definitely, with the entire defense taking the year off, I think they're going to have a hard time. So
I don't know, man. Belichick will surprise you. Belichick will put some guy you've never heard of at fucking linebacker, and he'll be all pro.
No,
he's just going to get a bunch of construction workers to play the line, dude, and they're going to be amazing. Right. He does it before. Didn't he pull construction workers for the Super Bowl, and they killed?
Yeah, but he's also made some – I mean, yes, of course. He puts the pieces in place, and he does it. The one difference this year, Tom Brady – I don't want to win this year. I want Trevor Lawrence. That's all.
You don't want to win this year?
No, I want to lose every game in the draft. Trevor Lawrence. That's what I want.
So you would take Trevor Lawrence over a Super Bowl this year?
Yes, because it means 20 more years of just dominance in the league.
20 more years? Bro, he could hurt his ankle tomorrow.
He's not even proven yet.
We have 6 Super Bowls. We don't need another one this year. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
That's not how Super Bowls work, man. You got to get them while you can.
That's not how the NFL works, bro. The NFL is like, what do you do now?
You guys are
win now. That's it.
You don't understand this kind of stuff. I get it, man. It's tough.
Bro, look at Cam Newton. That's a perfect example, bro. He's MVP, Rookie of the Year, took them to a Super Bowl, and then they basically just threw him out with the fucking recycling.
Yeah, well,
because his
knee needed to be recycled, and his hip and his ankle, whatever else.
Yeah, because they beat him to death.
Yeah.
They ran him into the ground.
They ran him into the ground, and he had a rough – and the whole – COVID-19 this year was a big issue with Cam because he couldn't get a physical before they had to cut him. So that was I think that was a big part of the reason. They were playing it safe.
Oh, right.
He was not able to get a
Forgot
physical,
about that.
So that had a big part in playing with like the Teddy Bridgewater signing and just.
Who's their new coach?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't remember who.
Because Ron Rivera is coaching the Redskins now, if I'm not mistaken, right? Oh, sorry, the Washington football team.
The Washington football team?
Football team. Yeah, we're not going to have to wait till next year to find out what their team name is going to be. It's going to be interesting.
That is crazy.
Oh, another big opt-out was Damian Williams. That's actually one of the biggest opt-outs, probably, with the Chiefs running back. He was supposed to be split time with their rookie, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was. They say he was arguably could have been a Super Bowl MVP last year. He was great. Damian Williams is a big stud, and I mean he had he had 2 touchdowns, like 100 or I don't know, a lot of yardage
in the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl, yeah, he was like one of the stars of the Super Bowl, like critical in the comeback. 2 touchdowns, I think 1 rushing, 1 passing, or 2 passing. I'm not sure which.
Does anyone know if you can opt back in after the opt out? Like if a vaccine,
I don't think so.
Like how does that work? Like, what are the rules?
No, it's a good question. I that would be interesting to find out if you could opt back in, but I don't know.
Because if the vaccine's discovered mid-season, then what would the players have to say no about?
Sure, that's an interesting thing. Wow,
I'm not sure, though. I don't think you can. I think it's kind of like once you've opted out, you've opted out. It's kind of like once you declare for the draft in college, it's over,
Yeah. Okay. And that would make sense, but it would also make sense for them to put a clause in there.
Right.
Opt back in.
That's true.
It would probably create an unfair advantage for players to opt out and then opt back in.
Right.
It would be a mess for fantasy for sure.
It would definitely it's going to mess with fantasy anyway, which actually one of the things that I was going to talk about for leagues this year, and this is one of the things that we're going to do in our league. I'm going to add extra bench spots for our league. So probably like 2 extra bench spots so you can carry more players, because there are going to be players that have to sit out weeks, sometimes 2 weeks at a time, because of positive tests,
Right.
So it's gonna affect fantasy football regardless, even with the players that are still playing. So
right. It's going to be an interesting year. It's definitely going to be, you're going to have to keep, I think, a little bit more attention to the waiver wire and what's happening just in, in league news and stuff like that. So I think you're going to have a lot of breakout players this season. A lot of people are going to step up and show out.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really random like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, well, you're never really going to know because of random players are going to step up.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of exciting rookies too. And we don't have to talk too much about the players' specific projections yet. We got a couple more podcasts to go before the season starts, before we get way into that stuff. And they just started training camps. I mean, some of the guys aren't even shown up yet. So we still have, we still don't really know who's going to.
Oh, right, because they're not doing a preseason.
They're not doing a preseason. Yes, exactly. And that actually is going to be one of those things that affects things mostly for the rookies. Like, you've got all these rookies coming in, trying to learn a system and get comfortable in the NFL. They're not going to get any practice games.
Also, you're going to get a lot more injuries in the beginning of the year because people's bodies are not up to par. You always have a couple big, huge injuries in the preseason, right? Always people always get injured because their bodies just aren't prepared. It's like how defenses get good towards the end of the year, because they're starting to get prepared. They're starting to lock in.
Yep.
So, their bodies are not going to be up to professional NFL football. You can't really replicate that, and to be honest, man, a lot of coaches these days are not doing full contact practices as much anymore,
right.
In order to prevent that, but you want them to be up to par, but you also don't want to be hurting your players in practice. So it's going to be interesting this year for sure.
It's going to be very interesting. I think the veterans are going to have a big advantage because they know how to prepare in the off season. Like you said, some of the younger guys haven't had that much experience, but certainly the rookies are going to take a little bit longer to bring along, I think, than normally, because they're just not going to have game experience. So, although I imagine they're going to be doing stuff within the team, I bet there'll be a lot more scrimmaging within the team, like offense,
right.
First team offense, first team defense. They're probably going to do more of that stuff, but still, like you said, it's a different atmosphere. It's a different game when it's on the field, whatever. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things I think is the All right, so one of the things we're going to talk about in today's episode is different kinds of leagues, choosing a league, starting your own league. And we're all in multiple leagues. So is there anything particularly unique about any of your other leagues that you guys have? You said you're in one with your coworkers, Vital. Do you guys do anything at work or anything specific, like work-related, as far as the league is concerned?
I mean, last year we didn't. It's pretty straightforward. Like it's just a straight money league, straight up, because we're following the HR rules.
Right. So it can't be too. I got you. So for anybody listening, so our league, the three of us, the league that we're in, all comedians in South Florida. We're actually at 9 right now. We need to get one more person. So if you guys know anybody, like we gotta try to hook it at 10. And that's so to me, when you're starting a new league or you're joining, like you always want to have the even number, right? Like so then there's nobody has a week off because that sucks. Obviously, if you have to do it, you have to do it. For whatever reason, you get stuck with an odd number, but you're trying to get that even number no matter what of players. Personally, I think a 14-team league is ideal. I'm in this year I got invited to do a dynasty league for the first time, which was really interesting. I'll talk a little bit more about dynasty. Is one of those like sort of fringe fantasy things that I never knew anything about until this year. So I'll talk about it a little. I'll tell you guys a little bit about it later, but like just to explain what it is. But it's a 14-team league, which is really cool because of the way that the schedule lines up. You only want to play, obviously, fantasy through week 16. Week 17, there's a lot of garbage time players and stuff. So you never want to involve week 17 in your fantasy season. So with a 14-team league, you get 13 games of regular season games and then 3 weeks of playoffs. Every team plays every other team exactly one time. So there's no imbalance or like, oh, you didn't play this guy or this guy you played twice and he's easy or whatever. So it's kind of, I like the idea of a 14-team league, but obviously you don't know how many you're going to get depending on, who you're playing with. Personally, I like playing with people I know. Like it's fun because we got all you got, like our comedy league, comedians league is great. We see each other out, talk shit. It's fun. You say you play with your coworkers. I've had leagues with my coworkers before. My other leagues, my cousins and all those guys. Did you play with anybody specific last year, Lonnie, besides us that you knew?
Yeah, it's just like a group of friends of mine from high school, basically. That was actually my first fantasy football league that I ever did.
Nice. Yeah, I just think it's more fun that way. Now the Dynasty League I'm in, I only know a couple of the guys. But it's an interesting league because everybody – so for anybody who doesn't know what Dynasty – if you guys don't know what Dynasty is, the way it works is you keep your team forever. Like it's a serious commitment. What's cool about the league, though, is that all the other guys in the league are real committed to playing. Like they're serious. I think the majority of the other guys, the guys in that Dynasty League, are also commissioners of their own leagues and other leagues.
That makes sense.
It's definitely too many cooks in the kitchen at times. It has already been because, people are weighing in and it's like everybody's got the way they want to do it and everybody else has their way of doing it. But we're all commissioners. Right. So, but there is one specific commissioner. Now, I've also played in leagues where there's a commission, but it's like voting. Like they make their decisions based on voting. Have you guys ever done that in a league before? Have you ever experienced a league like that?
I've always done commissioner-based leagues.
Yeah,
I just know a voting league would just be a mess. Like,
it is anarchy. It is absolutely terrible. It's one of the worst things. And partly because you've got collusion. You've got guys who are like, well, I know this bad writer, and I'm going to join with him and his side, and we're going to vote against you. And I actually heard a little bit more about it from my roommate last year. Was in a league that was a big money league. It was like $250 buy-in, or no.
Wow.
No, it was a $500 buy-in. It was
what?
Okay.
Yeah, it was nuts. So he split a team with another buddy of his. But they had this whole voting system. And for a league that's that high stakes, especially, it's like you're going to let these guys vote on whether or not a trade can happen?
Honestly, the commissioners shouldn't even be involved in the league. That should be like a third party, like if it's that high.
Basically like it just, an overseer, but all of the decisions came down to league votes, and it was a mess. Like there was some shit that happened in that league that was such like I couldn't believe the stories he was telling me. I was like, I would never stand for any of that. That's total crock of shit. So yeah, I think it's important. I personally, the authoritarian government works in fantasy football. You want to have a commissioner, but a fair commissioner who you trust, right? And that's,
And if you don't like it, be the commissioner next year. But I think the commissioner should just stay the way it is. It is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not that many things that a commissioner really comes into play with,
Yeah. And to me, the most important thing as commissioner of our league, to me, the most important thing for like the league is just to let you guys know what all the rules are ahead of time. Like, this is how we're going to do it. This is what's going to happen. You cover all the different scenarios. And that way, there's no surprises in the middle of the season when somebody's like, well, what about this? And we're like, no, that was covered, like, preseason. We already decided.
Right.
It's not how you can't do that, or you can do that, or whatever it is. And if you want to change it, we can talk about it next year. You know what I mean? We'll have some discussions with our league, I'm sure, about some minor rule changes or whatever. So yeah, commissioner versus voting. Always go commissioner. Make sure it's somebody you like, you know. I'm a big fan of, like, you want to play. I played 1 year of fantasy with, like, some people I didn't really know, and I won the league. And then I left the next year, and they were pissed. Like, I took them for $400, but I didn't know any of them, and and they were kind of like douchey to begin with. And not all of them. Some of them were all right, but I was just like, this league, like, I don't want to do this. So I'd rather play with my friends, than.
Sure. I mean, our league champion is leaving.
Our league champion, our first and second place league, leaders from last year are leaving.
Who was the second place?
Carlos.
Oh, right.
But that's okay. We replaced him with new blood already. I'm excited about
We've got
that.
Hennessy and Jay, right? Those are the two new ones?
No, Sean and Jay.
Sean Mullins?
Sean Mullins.
Okay.
Guy are jumping in. Yep. And then we need one more. I don't know. It'd be great if Tennessee.
We need one more. Maybe there's somebody in Miami that wants to do it.
I sent an invite to, like, a bunch of the Miami guys, and I haven't heard back from any of them. But so reach out if there's anybody you think of.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, and most of them don't know football like that,
Yeah. There's not a.
Like, I'm honestly surprised we found this many already.
But that's the thing. A lot of them didn't even know football to begin with. And then, like, I got really into football because before fantasy, I just knew the Dolphins. Like, I couldn't tell you. I didn't care about any other team. I didn't watch any other football. But watching fantasy, now I watch every game, dude.
For sure.
I know every player's stats on random teams that no one's ever heard of. Like,
that's my favorite thing about fantasy football is that it makes every game entertaining. There's always something to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the blowouts are great.
I mean, even the fucking Titans playing the Browns. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even the, like, shitty Jaguars.
This game is for last place. No one cares about it. But everyone's players, there's like,
Yeah.
Those Thursday night games. Nobody
wants
to watch. Yeah, no. Part of the other problem with that I've run into is some of the people who do know fantasy but aren't in the league is they're, like, people who we know, other comedians who we know, who are in multiple leagues already, like, with their friends. You know what I mean? That's sort of part of it too. It's like, how many? I'm in 3 leagues this year. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do another one. So, yeah.
I like 3 leagues. That's probably my max. But, like, you really get to mess around, I think, and find, what works.
Yeah. And I like league diversification too. Like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the Dynasty League is because it's just way different than anything else that I'm doing. It's different than our league. It's different than my cousin's league, although I think 2 of the guys in that one are also in the Dynasty. And so last year I did this Vampire League, which is really kind of cool. So this is something I was going to tell you guys about. If you only have a small group of friends, like, let's say you got, like, or your family or something like that, where you only have, like, 4 people or even 6, but for 4, it's like, you really want to play with your close friends or family, but you only have 4 people and you just want to keep it in-house. And to make it fun and interesting, what we did last year, we did a variation of a Vampire League. So basically what happened was every week, you're only playing 3 different teams. So we rotate through a whole bunch. We play everybody a bunch of times. But every week, the winning team got to steal the losing team's best player. And it was fucked up. Like, we were trading. Christian McCaffrey was on every single team at one point last year because
you know what? Weirdly, I hated that at first, but now that I think about it, that might be a little more fair. Because
it's definitely interesting.
So if you have 4 teams, we also did an expanded, like, a huge roster. I think we were starting 11 players, 2 QBs, or we had a straight up 2 QB league, like, not a super flex. Which
200 points a game, bro.
Dude, we were scoring 300 points almost sometimes. It was so much. We put, like, huge bonuses in it just to make it different and interesting, to keep us engaged in what is otherwise going to be, like, everybody had an all-star team to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you're loaded top to bottom. So the stealing the other players, it made it kind of fun and more interesting. And then the other thing I did in that league was so we had 11 starters, but only 2 bench spots. So yeah, you're loaded, but when you have 3 guys on a bye, you have to drop somebody. So you drop Chris Carson's on the waiver wire half the season. It's like, who do I pick up? Who do I not? You're looking at week to week it wasn't quite a daily fantasy like a DraftKings thing, but it had elements of that where you're looking week to week matchups and, you know, shuffling defenses in and out and two quarterbacks and stuff. So it was a fun way to, you know, throw in a different league and mix it up a little bit and just do something interesting. So keeper leagues, I know we said we were going to do a keeper last year, but because we have, you know, changeover this year, we're not going to do keepers. I feel like you need to have consistency for keepers. Do you guys do that in your other leagues? Do you do keepers from previous years?
That's where you keep the same squad from last year?
No, it's keepers usually only one or two players. There's a couple different ways of doing keepers. With my cousin's league, the one that I'm in with them, we did last year for the first time we did a keeper, and it was only one. You could keep one player, and it was going to be your first round pick if you wanted to. So you could either forgo the keeper and then see who's available in the first round, or if you had one of those guys you really want,
it becomes your first round pick.
It becomes your first round pick, which I like. So, for example, last year I think I kept Devontae Adams. It worked out. He was good. This year, last year I got Dalvin Cook in the second round in that league. He was a stud. He was the second best running back in the league. This year, he's going to be my keeper because I took third place. We also do inverse draft order, meaning whatever place you finish the previous year, you draft inverse. So like last place gets first pick. So it's a keeper league, but also inverse draft order, which means I'm not going to get a pick until like 9th. I'm taking Dalvin Cook for sure if I'm going to be drafting 9th, no matter what. Like he's, you know, I think he's a stud. I think he's going to be could be top 5 pick. So we were going to do keepers, but without everybody returning to the same teams, it seems kind of like we should just reset it and start over. I feel like keeper is one of those things. It's cool if you have the same group of people every year, and then you can hold on to your guy or that one guy that you want to keep. But if you have some turnover like we have this year, no keepers. What else? Oh, so Superflex is another option for us. I like Superflex for like smaller leagues. Maybe we'll talk about doing it in our league this year. Superflex is where you can play a QB, a second QB. You can do basically it's any position. You can play a second QB, you can play a tight end, you can play whatever you want.
Monty would have destroyed us last year with that.
Exactly.
Well,
no way.
But he might not have got Lamar Jackson depending on how we draft.
Right.
So,
exactly. The drafting changes.
Yeah, big time. In our dynasty league, we're doing Superflex, and quarterbacks are flying off the board. The quarterback value goes way up. Basically, it's like you treat it like a 2-quarterback league almost. Mm-hmm. So yeah, your quarterback value changes dramatically when you're drafting in a 2 QB or a Superflex league. Like, and there's really no way to kind of try it out. Like, you can mess around with some of the mock drafts and stuff, but until you actually get there and see quarterbacks flying off the board in the first and second round, there's no way to prepare for it.
Mock drafts are great, but they can't quite replicate a real draft because one thing they don't account for is people always draft their team quarterback. They always draft stupid shit, so mock drafts, they're not the greatest, but they have helped me win quite a few times, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I like mock drafts, and we'll talk more about mock drafts in the second episode as we're preparing for our draft and strategizing and stuff like that. But I think they're a useful tool, and we'll talk more about that
for sure.
Why in our next episode. So what league settings, let's say you're starting up your own league, or you're, joining a league, it's important to understand what the league settings are. And one of the biggest ones is waivers versus auctions, right? You guys done both? You know what I'm talking about?
I've never done auctions before.
Have you done
I've done auction, yeah.
You have? Yeah. So waivers is just basically what we did last year, and we'll probably do it again this year. Waivers, simple, I think it resets every week, inverse order of standings, whoever you want first, like the team that's in last place gets their first pick on the waiver wire. Auctions is you have a certain amount of money and you bid. It's the same, inverse order, same thing, but you can get outbid. So you have a certain amount of money every.
When you say it's the same inverse order, do you mean that the worst player gets the most money?
No, the worst player gets priority. So let's say you're in last place and I'm in first place, and we both bid $10 to
I
pick
see.
up, whoever, Tariq Cohen, and because you're in last place and I'm in first place, you get it because you're lower. We bid the same amount of money, but then you lose your $10. So you have a budget throughout the whole season. Usually it's $100 for the whole season, and that's important to because then you can kind of strategize. Well, who do you need to pick up if you lose your tight end week 1? You go out and try to get that guy who's going to pop. Some stud tight end happens to be on the waiver wire. Who had a great first week. Yeah, maybe you spend.
They always are.
There always are, right? Exactly. So my strategy with waivers with the auction is I go big early. I'll blow through all my money. I'll spend half of it on one player if I think there's a chance they're going to be a starter for the rest of the season. Because you can't take your money with you next year. It's not how it works.
Sure, and especially if you're in if you're in a league that doesn't have as many players, like an 8-man league. That's really where I've cut my teeth, is 8-man leagues. You're gonna have some fucking stars on the waiver wire. It's just the way it goes.
It's gonna happen, yeah, absolutely. Especially depending on how big your bench is, how deep your bench goes. That's another one of those settings. It's usually pretty standard, but I think this year, if you're setting up your own league out there, somebody new for the first time, make your bench deeper. Like usually it's 6 bench plus 1 IR. I go 8 bench this year. Do 2 extra bench spots just because of COVID. The waivers are going to be crazy anyway. Especially if players are out or in or whatever. But at least that way, you have a deeper bench. It makes the draft a little more interesting. Trades more interesting, stuff like that. Fractional points versus tiebreakers is that's a tough. So have you guys done whole points versus fractional points? You know what I'm talking about?
What do you mean?
Kind of. I'm not totally familiar with it.
All right, so some leagues, and I think my leagues are split. Some leagues you get whole points. Like you have to get 10 yards before you get 1 single point. Right?
Okay,
so if the running back gets 8 yards, you're not getting that point.
Okay, they won't do the 0.8. Okay.
Yes, they round up to that. Whereas if you change the settings, you can get fractional points, meaning every yard is a tenth of a point.
I think every league I've ever done has been fractional.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. So
I would be furious.
I'd be pissed, bro.
I was like, 0.9, you better give me my 0.9, bro. All those 0.9s add up.
Yeah,
and I've been fucked over a lot in fractionals too, so I can't even imagine. Like I've lost by like 0.2 before, and
it's brutal. So if you're not doing fractional points, and I think one of the leagues that I'm in or have been in wasn't fractional points, the tiebreaker scenario becomes extremely important. And I think our tiebreaker scenario is bench points. So then you start looking at how many points are my bench going to score? Because we had like 2 or 3 league ties.
I would win every tiebreaker if that was it. My bench is amazing all the time. Always outperform my team.
But if your bench is on the bye week too, then you're fucked. So that's the other thing. Yeah, I was in a league where we didn't have fractional points one year, and I think these 2 teams that were vying for like the last playoff spot, one guy needed 1 more yard from 1 player. He lost the tiebreaker because of that 1 yard that player didn't get. It was literally a 1 yard tiebreak scenario, and I don't think he made the playoffs because he was fucking furious. He was so pissed. So anyway, I like fractional points, but it does keep things a little bit interesting if you start looking at the whole points roundup. I'm a big fan of bonuses. You guys like bonuses? Big play bonuses, stuff like that?
No, I hate that.
I'm not familiar. I don't know if I've ever used those.
Well, we had a
like
couple.
If you make a huge touchdown, it's extra points in just the yards and the score. It's because it was like, or at the end of the game or some shit like that.
But what qualifies as a huge touchdown? Like over a certain number of yards in the air or stuff like that?
Yep. Yeah. So like 40-plus yard touchdowns or 50-plus yard touchdowns are usually the best.
See, it's funny, man, because I always get these players that end up scoring, 80, like Derrick Henry, for example. I had him last year, and I think he had 2 90-plus yard runs for a touchdown. And I wanted extra points for that. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, I drafted appropriately. Right. Like, I put him in, Derrick Henry has been undervalued for every year he's been in the NFL.
Every year. Yeah.
I've come in. I've been a Derrick Henry fan since he was at fucking Yulee in high school. So I don't know if you guys know that, but he was the best high school football player in American history.
I'm not surprised.
So I've like known about him, and when he came into the league, I was like, okay. And then he was splitting runs, I think with DeMarco Murray, or somebody like that. And I'm like, this guy's gonna blow up. And now look, of course,
Well, I think everyone knows now, dude. After what he did in the playoffs, dude, like he was the Titans, dude.
Monster.
He's a monster. He's not gonna be undervalued this year. If anything, I think.
No, as a matter of fact, he might be a little overvalued.
Yep, I think so too.
Making Tannehill look good.
He's still, you know what always hurts his stock though is his PPR. Like everyone always people's like, oh, he doesn't catch that many passes. It's like, he fucking need to. He's gonna run for 200 yards. Doesn't need to catch.
Are we doing PPR this year?
I think what we're gonna do actually in our league is, I want to do PPR, but I'm gonna change the. So the thing I don't love about PPR is that it devalues running backs like Derrick Henry, right? See, like I like the half PPR.
I like half.
Just because otherwise you devalue the running back. Now
that seems fair.
But I like PPR because it's fun. You score a lot of points, right?
Yeah.
So I thought about it for this year. What I think we're gonna do is I'm gonna make 2 mandatory running back positions. So last year I kind of wanted to make it easy last year, first timers in our league and stuff. Like I wanted to make a lot of flexes so they didn't have to make a lot of tough decisions while they got the hang of the league. This year, everyone's been in the league for at least a year. I want to do 2 starting running backs for every team. So I think
that's what was different. That's what it normally is. And I think last year you could have alternated a receiver and you only had to have 1 running back. Because I did that a lot. I had like a bunch of receivers just for PPR.
Right. Yeah, which I like I said, I wanted to make it a like an easy league, a user-friendly league last year for the people who were newbies or hadn't played a lot. So I put more flexes in to do that, to make it more easy for them to adjust their rosters. This year, I don't want to – so I want to do PPR, but I don't want to devalue the running backs. So we're going to have 2 starting running backs, and we're going to do PPR. So the running backs are still going to have value, but – we're also going to score a shitload of points because.
Have you guys ever done IDP before?
No, what's IDP?
Individual defensive player.
Oh,
I
okay.
have not.
Yeah.
I did a league. I did that 1 year, and it's definitely interesting. It definitely gives you another thing to consider, because guys will start drafting a JJ Watt in the 3rd round. So it takes your whole kind of draft mentality and even the way you play, and kind of flips it on its ear, which I always enjoy. I always like it when you have to think a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I do like that. So points based on like sacks and tackles and things like that.
The biggest guy. So the guy that would come off the board, the top was JJ Watt, right? Because he has the sack. He has the what's called the triple crown, right? The sack, fumble recovery, touchdown. So he would get all of those in one. But then you have a guy like Kyle Fuller who would get 8 interceptions a year, or you've had, these guys would just come up, Robert Quinn, like these guys that you don't really pay attention to that much, but would just fucking get you so many points.
Like a Tyrann.
Go ahead. Yeah, exactly. My IDP was the linebacker from the Falcons, and he scored me a lot of points.
Yeah.
Patrick Warlow.
Yeah. That's a fun. I like that. It's a fun twist. It makes
definitely
the defense.
I don't know if it's good for newcomers though. That's a little bit more in-depth football knowledge.
That's advanced. Yeah, that's definitely advanced fantasy play. Like that's.
Yeah.
You've been in it for a while. We're gonna throw.
Nobody that doesn't know football is watching defense. Like they don't know who the fuck they're looking at.
Yeah, we barely even know which defenses are – like, we only know which defenses are good because of fantasy. Like, that's the only reason you track that anyway.
Usually.
Well, I just want to say that I got the Pats defense like the last pick of our draft last year, and they were the best fantasy defense of all time.
Oh, man, that's the only reason you dominated.
That was trash.
Dude, those guys, man, I would like – I got fucked over. I think I had Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
Dude, so I had in my 2 leagues, I'll show you who I had. I had Saquon. I had Juju Smith-Schuster. Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry split over the 4, and I got fucked. Saquon Barkley was my first pick.
Saquon, dude.
That's brutal.
Saquon really? I don't know. What happened to him last year? Did he get hurt or he just had no
they just didn't
O-line?
play him a lot because they knew they were losing, I think.
Right.
He was a little banged up. He was definitely injured partly through part of the year.
Injured.
But I was reading my drafting, and all three people that my first three draft picks, all of them shit the bed. Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham, and Saquon. I got no points every week.
Yeah.
Basically from all three of them.
Different reasons too. Like that. I mean, with Smith-Schuster, it's just because they had terrible quarterback play.
I mean, they were on their fourth string quarterback last year. Remember
I felt so bad for Pittsburgh, bro. They were going through it, bro. After losing Antonio Brown, then they lost what's his name, who went to the Jets?
Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, I love Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, they are.
I heard that they are a very, very toxic organization. I heard the Steelers, they have a lot of history. They've won Super Bowls, but they're not a good team to play for, which is why all those guys leave. Nobody stays in Pittsburgh.
Ben does.
Sanders. He was a guy who left. He was Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders, Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown.
Yep.
You've got all of those guys leave, dude.
Yeah.
None of them stay. You had Hines Ward. I think people got a little spoiled with him, Hines Ward.
Yeah, and Polamalu. They had some guys stick around.
Oh, dude, their team, when they were dope, when they won the Super Bowls, they were stacked, especially their defense. But
that's the thing. When you're winning, you can ignore a lot.
Yeah. You can have a rapist be your quarterback when you're winning.
That's true.
All right.
I'll say this right. I never feel bad for the Steelers. I hate the Steelers.
Fuck them.
All my cousins are Steelers fans. I don't know if those guys listen to this, but fuck you guys.
They're in the same state as the Eagles, so they can suck a dick.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're awful. Nobody likes the Steelers. I'm not gonna have any Steeler fans on this listening to the podcast.
Do they have internet access? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think they have electricity.
Log on to the internet.
All right. So as far as other league settings go, let's say you're starting your own league. What do you guys like for the apps? What do you use? You like ESPN? We got. I've done a Yahoo league, which was pretty good. What are your favorite as far as the apps go?
I've done ESPN and I've done NFL.com.
Okay. So what do you think?
NFL.com is cool because when you're watching the game, when you're on the app, you can actually click it and it'll show you the live game. So I've been at comedy shows. Nice. And I've had my phone and I'm waiting to get on stage, but I'm it's Monday night, right? So I'm fuck, I need 20 points from Odell Beckham Jr. So I'm literally watching the game on my phone, putting it down, doing my set, and coming back and watching the game. So
I've totally been there. I did that halfway through a contest. After my set, I was there were 5 more comics after me in this contest. I was I just went on, watched the game on my phone. I didn't even see what they did.
Also, what I like about the apps now is they let you do your draft through the app. You don't need to be at a computer. So I actually drafted at comedy shows.
Oh, nice. That is nice to be able to do that. Just everything from your phone straight up. I'd like having my laptop in front of me with the screen and all my notes and shit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is, especially once you've done a few different leagues. Dude, right. I'll tell you about my dynasty draft in a minute because it was a fucking mess. But
you've already done it?
Yes. Oh yeah. So because it's dynasty, you keep these players forever. They were fuck it, let's draft a month and a half out from the season. Yeah. Maybe a month and a half, 2 months, because everyone's sitting at home doing nothing. And we're going to keep all these players forever anyway. So, little injuries and stuff like that, unless guy has a career-ending injury, which almost never happens, in, whatever, preseason, they aren't having preseason, so it really doesn't matter. So we did our draft way early. I already have my dynasty team.
You've only got 4 players in the dynasty league, though, right? It's not that big of a roster.
No. It's huge. It's 21. Yeah. Oh. It's an enormous. So in the dynasty league, we're actually using a new app called the Sleeper app, which is pretty good. I've been impressed with it so far. I think the guy who set the league up, he thinks it's going to be the new gold standard for leagues. So if you're looking at setting up a new league, check out Sleeper app. So far, so good with them. I like it. It looks different. It's an interesting format, but it's pretty user friendly. But no, so our dynasty draft, this is probably the biggest mistake if you're setting up your own league, is to have a long-term period, on your draft, to give people too much time to draft. It is the worst possible. We had 21 players. Because our benches are huge. I mean, I think like 10 players on my bench, maybe.
Wow.
Which is it's
Forever.
forever. But it's the
My
dynasty
move
thing.
is to use up all the time just to annoy people. I do that all the time. I know exactly who I'm picking, but I just love everyone like, hurry up and pick. I was like, nah.
Now, in a normal draft with like a 3-minute time, whatever, that's fine. Like you get a couple hours max, big deal. Like you make a night of it. The problem with this was we had 14 teams, 21 players per team, and they gave everybody 10 minutes per
Oh
pick.
my God.
It literally took
What
us
time did you start?
it was I don't know, we didn't start early enough. We started at a reasonable time, actually. If we had 3-minute picks or 2-minute picks, we would have been okay. But after like pick 5 or 6, there's this one dude who's in both of my other leagues who I'll give him a shout out in case he ever listens, which he probably won't because he fucking nails it in no matter what. Kyle Enoch, go fuck yourself hard.
His last name too.
He's on auto draft by pick 4. Like he got Eli Manning. And it took him 10 minutes to do it this year. Like, just to give you an idea, it is absolutely ridiculous. So we're going around, it's an extra half an hour because he has 10 minutes per pick, and it's a snake draft. Anyway, long story short, we had to cut the draft halfway through. We stopped and started the next day and put it on. Like, it took us 24 hours to draft. It was awful.
Wow.
It was the worst possible drafting experience I can imagine in my life. I'm happy to be in the league. But don't make your draft picks very long. It doesn't need
Seriously.
to. It's not necessary.
I thought auto draft would do it just instantly. No? It waits till the end?
It waits till the end of the time limit. Yeah, and I don't know how to change those settings. And I'm not a commissioner in that league anyway, so I was just stuck sitting on my ass. And
Maybe it's once at least give you the chance to pick it if you're actually there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's the idea. Like, it waits till the end of the thing.
Instead of like, auto draft automatically picked a player for me before I even got a chance. I'd be annoyed.
I don't know. I think you can turn on auto draft, but he never does. He just leaves. He's such a dick. And the rest of us just fucking sitting around twiddling our thumbs. While we know
I kind of like this guy.
I love him.
He plays mind games.
He doesn't though, because he always loses too. That's the thing. His team's terrible.
Sure.
We'll forget to put. He's like the taco of our league. It sucks. And if you ever lose to him, it's just so embarrassing.
I hate a taco that wins, bro. I hate a league taco that wins.
It's supposed to be my
off trash, bro.
Yeah.
All right. So prizes and playoffs are probably two of the biggest things you got to establish preseason. First, second, third place traditionally get paid. I like to do a 60-30-10 split approximately. Like 60% of the buy-in goes to first place, 30% to second, and around 10% to last place. Like I feel like third place should get their money back or a little bit more. And that's about it, right?
Third place is usually money back, and then
somewhere in that range. I think we had maybe the third place got $10 more or whatever. We did a trophy in our league. I like something tangible. I like having a trophy. Obviously, our last year we had a trophy for this year. The Comedians League. We're going to do it again.
Are we going to use the same trophy, or is Alana keeping hers?
If I can, well, no, we're not passing the trophy around. There's going to be a separate trophy.
Oh, we're not.
Okay.
No, partly because Elena dropped out of the league.
Right.
That's why I should take it from her.
Right.
I mean. Yes, but also it's kind of nice to have something forever.
Yeah.
I like having a new trophy every year. I don't know.
At least we could do something new. We could do like a belt too. I like that.
I like a belt.
If we were I think in a dynasty league, a belt would be awesome because you're all committed forever and ever and ever. Like, and then you just pass this belt around.
You could do a shitty belt too for the loser. Like, and they have to wear that while they do their poem.
For sure, a bad shitty trophy for I like that as a penalty too. And we'll get into penalties in a minute. But
I was thinking instead of a belt for the loser, you could do like a ball gag, like those like sex things that they have to wear to an event.
So
we'll be clean.
We're going to finish with penalties, last place penalties. But before we get to that, let's talk about playoff structure just real quick. So I think we're also going to talk about league names too before we get to it. Let's finish with penalties. I got some good ones for you guys. But playoffs. All right. So our 10-team league, We did six teams in the playoffs, 4 in out of the playoffs or in the losers bracket or whatever. I'm a fan of more teams in the playoffs as opposed to less. But I'm in a 14-team league where also only 6 get in and 8 are out. Now, me personally, I would put 8. If you're in a 14-team league, I would do 8 in and 6 out. But I don't know. I mean, it gets a little tricky when it comes to bye weeks and stuff like that. So I would even consider doing 10 in the playoffs, 2 first-round byes, and then I don't know. I like more teams in the playoff, the better, because
How does the NFL do it? The
do
NFL, it's 8 teams on each league with 2 teams on both sides getting a bye, right?
Yeah, but they're changing it. They're actually changing it this year. They're going to pretty soon. I think starting next year, they're expanding 1 more team in the playoffs. So it's going to be 7. It used to be 6. I think this year it's still 6. Next year it's going to be 7 with only 1 team getting a bye. Only the first place. So they're expanding into an extra team. That was part of the new collective bargaining agreement.
I like it.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting idea. We could, to stick with the NFL format, you could do 7 teams and 1, bye or something.
I always find the NFL to be very boring and very there's almost no room for personal expression or any flair in the NFL. So anything they can do to make things more exciting. Like when they changed the overtime format, I was through the roof because how many games just ended with a stupid fucking field goal
right away. And it's like, what? The other team didn't even get to try? I was like, This is nonsense.
My idea for the NFL, I mean, this is obviously off topic and just something I wanted to say because it makes me smile, is I always thought that the NFL, their overtime should be college, the same style as college, where each team gets a chance, but from the 50-yard line.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
right away.
I always thought that was I'm like, okay, you're professional. You want to kick a field goal? All right, here's a 67-yard field goal to start off with. Let's go.
Sure. And then you see some of the really stud kickers, all of a sudden their value goes to
stud kickers, deep threat wide receivers. It really changes your strategy, which I always like. I always like things getting flipped over.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I like it. That sounds like
now we just need to call the NFL and have them
we'll although I do like the way
never know.
Now the new rules for newer rules. I like
it's for sure.
It's more interesting. You going for the touchdown, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk league names. All right, you gotta have some good league names. Our league name, we haven't talked about it yet. Our league name, all comedians in South Florida. Our league is called the Dick Pick 6. You gotta have fun play on puns, Our trophy was pretty phallic, fairly dick-shaped. If you guys remember, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the same trophy for this year because we're doing a new trophy every year. I'm going to try to find the most dick-shaped trophy that I possibly can for that. Last year's was epic. It was incredible. I couldn't believe I found it, and I'm going to try to find it again. So, but yeah, the Dick Pick 6 is our league. I like having relevant, fun pun names. You guys what are the names? Do you have any other good league names? The other guys you play with?
I think last year my league name was Tom Brady's helmet, I believe, if I'm not.
All right. I like it. Vital, what about your work crew? Do you guys have a good one?
Oh, no, Antonio Brown's helmet. It was Antonio Brown.
That makes perfect sense.
That's right. It wasn't Tom. It was the year before that. It was Tom Brady's deflated balls or something like that.
I've named my league that, for sure. I don't know. I don't have any good ones. I don't know, but this year maybe we could do Brissett's helmet, just damaging.
I think we got to keep I think our league is perfect. I think the Dick Pick 6 has got to be the comedians league. I think that's got to stay the same.
Now I'm a little bit picky when it comes to our individual team names.
Oh yeah.
I don't believe you need to name your team after someone that's on your team, but I do think it has to be somebody that's still in the NFL.
That's
I disagree.
An interesting point. Wait, can we pause this one for? Actually, this is one of the things we're going to get into next podcast.
Okay.
That's a nice teaser for you guys. Check it for our next podcast. We're going to get into team names and some of our favorite team name strategy, because we all have different team name strategies, and it's a very big deal. Before we get going, though, I actually looked up some other good league names. I think every league name should be relevant kind of to the group if you can make it that way. Like I did one at a dive shop that I worked at with a crew, and you guys won't necessarily get this, but anybody who's like a hardcore scuba diver, we called it the Drop 'em Like It's Hot Out League, right? So it's a fun, like, because when in South Florida, if you're scuba diving, we do a lot of what's called hot drops, where you actually have to drop divers off the boat and they have to drift into a shipwreck. It's a pretty high level scuba thing that happens. Anyway, it was irrelevant to our crew. Everybody got it. It was a fun little, inside joke for everybody who worked at the dive shop. Anyway, I think I like that idea of like keeping it relevant to what you're doing, and also the use of puns is super important. A couple other ones I looked up that I really loved: The Greatest Show on Paper. That one I enjoyed. The League of Ordinary Gentlemen, and probably my favorite one that I found looking up on the internet: Our Boss Thinks We're Working. So
For sure.
there's some ideas. Go all in on naming. You're naming your league. Be creative. Come up with a good pun, something fun, something relatable, something everybody gets a kick out of, because that's ultimately how you're going to get respect. Last thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about collusion prevention if within your league. Super important because obviously you want your league to have integrity. And if there's ever any cases of collusion, alleged collusion, your league loses integrity, people want to quit, everybody gets mad, huge fights ensue.
Mm-hmm.
So examples of collusion would be, for instance, sharing players for bye weeks. Right. Okay, I think this idea was floated possibly between you two last year. Somebody came up with this, floated the idea of, hey, I'll give you so-and-so for your bye week if you give him back for mine. And
I would never give back a player.
I would never collude with anyone else because everyone else can suck my dick. Like
I agree.
I don't have any teammates in a fucking fantasy football league.
But it does happen, and that's the problem.
It does happen.
It does happen. Sure. So,
but it usually only happens with losers. That's also the main thing.
That's true.
When you're up front, like you don't even risk it. Like I was like, why? I don't trust this guy. Like why would I?
So that's the problem, though, is you get some teams that are out of it, and they're like, fuck it, I'll let you.
I hate that when someone in last place, all of a sudden I see them trading their players all of a sudden to someone who's like in fifth place. I'm like, what? Someone beat all these trades. I get mad at that. I'm like, what is happening?
So
the only collusion I've ever dealt with in one of my leagues was somebody was like hoarding players, like a last place finisher was. I don't remember exactly how it worked out, but they were like basically. I mean, it was when Kaepernick was still in the league, so. They were like, Kaepernick was balling, but he was in 8th place and picked him up. They traded him down. I don't remember exactly how it was, but we kicked him out of the league for the next year. He wasn't allowed back in.
I've never heard of that case of collusion before. That is interesting. So to me, the only tried and true method for preventing collusion is to have a last place penalty. Yeah. And also not a regular season last place penalty. You have to have a playoffs in reverse, a loser's bracket played down so that the loser of the losers has to do something shitty. And that's the only way to prevent collusion because those teams.
If you sell away all your good players, you're fucked.
Yeah, exactly. You're at the bottom. You're worried about this last place penalty. You're still trying to the very end. It also means you're not going to have any teams that are just mailing it in at the end. Because even if they're not colluding, they might not be trying or setting their lineups or trying to pick up waivers or improve their team like everybody else.
But the last place penalty is good, man. It prevents a lot of stuff. It really sparks motivation because nobody wants to be walking around with that ball gag.
Absolutely. So last place penalties are, I think, the most important thing. I think if you don't have last place penalties in your league is soft. Like that's just that you gotta have something and something that people care about. So last year, our last place penalty, we're all stand-up comedians. Last place penalty was a 5-minute open mic set where they had to tell all knock-knock jokes for 5 minutes. Written
That was
by.
that was a good set, man. The crowd was so confused at first. They're like, "What is this?"
It was one of the
I'm
funniest
sorry
things.
I missed that. That was
Oh my
Warren,
God.
It
right?
was
At
good. It
Robot.
was really good.
I heard he killed. I heard it was like a
Yeah,
really, it
by
was,
the end, everyone was like on board. Like the crowd got.
He murdered it. It was hilarious. So shout out to Warren Scott, who was our last place loser
he
last
should
year.
consider losing again, so he could make a comedy career out of it.
Kilmore.
Yeah.
Crushed the knock knock set. Now he didn't get to write. I got to write the jokes because I won the losers bracket. This year for our losers bracket, for our losers penalty, we're not doing the knock knock jokes again. This year we're gonna do 5-minute open mic set, a spoken word poem.
It should have to be a spoken word poem in the gag.
In the-
Like we
the
need an
ball
open
gag.
mouth gag. You know,
I don't know. I
that'd
think
be fire.
just a spoken word poem for anybody who doesn't go to open mics a lot out there. If you're listening, you don't know much about stand-up comedy. Spoken word poems are how do we put this? As comedians, when someone's doing a spoken word poem, it is usually the time when we're all going to leave or go outside, or
It's
like
the equivalent of a tuna fish sandwich on an airplane. It pisses everybody off.
yeah,
It's always at the worst time after either some of the momentum is just picked up perfectly, and it's like, we got slam poetry. I was like, no,
sucks the
I'm
life
up
out
next.
of the room. It's awful. Nobody likes it. So this year, I think I might outsource I might have somebody else, another comedian who's not even in the league, write the poem. But I'm going to wait until we find out who is in last place so they can make it specifically about them.
You should get a real poet to write it, and like don't tell them it's a joke, so they do it seriously. I think a serious spoken word poem
Or
would be
they should
worse than
have
our
to read
jokes.
some like classic poem.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love it. Yeah,
Some
Leave the
fucking like
Grass by
what's his name,
Whitman.
Walt Whitman, or something like really boring and like old and not even like modern English about a windmill or something in the
Whatever it is,
1800s.
it's going to be super embarrassing. We're going to put it on YouTube again. It's going to be fantastic. So the last place penalty is super important.
It's just important that the last place penalty be embarrassing. That's what it has to be.
Ideally, public humiliation. Although there's other versions, like you've got the trophy thing. You could do. But I like public humiliation personally. The other league one year we did with the dive shop. Our last place penalty was a Facebook hack, 24-hour Facebook hack, or I think it was one hack, but it had to be left. It was like one post, but left up for 24 hours, and it was gonna be this. The girl was gonna. It ended up being a girl who lost, and we were gonna post like a pregnancy picture, and she was young and didn't have a boyfriend or anything. And it was just gonna be straight up. And but here's the thing with the Facebook hack: we had to come up with all these stipulations about like you can't have communication with your family members for 24 hours either. So it was hardcore. She was in tears. She quit, I think, the league. She was like, I'm not doing it. And that brings me to the other point. Like, if you're not going to do the penalty, if you agree to the penalty preseason and you're not going to do it, there is only one result: a lifetime ban from the league. Like, if you're going to pussy out to something you agreed on preseason, you're done. Never again.
It's called integrity, bro.
That's exactly right. Integrity. Couple other favorites. Do you guys have any other favorite league penalties? We got to go through. Like, what do you got?
mean, I love any speedos, like public speedos and dudes. That's a big one. Like I've done that a bunch of times. That's a classic. Like,
I mean, I've never done it, but I've seen quite a few last place finishing tattoos, which are like, I suck at fantasy football. That is a funny one to me. Obviously, I would never do that to anybody, but those guys take that shit serious.
Tattoo is, in my opinion, it's the most hardcore last place penalty there is. If you want to be, and I was talking to my cousins about this because they've been pussying out about last place penalties for like a couple of years now. Last year, I think what we finally decided was team naming rights for the next year, which they take team names very seriously in my cousin's league. It's like a really big deal. Guys have had the same name for their team for like 5 years running or something like that. So it's every team name is like super thought out. So having team naming rights was a pretty significant penalty. Now they fucked up the last place, the playoff, the losers playoff, they screwed up the bracket and didn't establish the rules ahead of time. So like it didn't even stick. But what was that? I forgot what I was wrong. The the tattoos. So the tattoos, one way you can be a little bit less hardcore but still make it interesting is you could do a henna tattoo, right? That was one of the ideas. I'm picturing like, so a lower back,
Base.
Just
if it's a henna tattoo, it's gotta be base. I agree.
I was gonna say sun, Chinese writing, some shit like that.
Or like a knuckle, something that's like obvious and not uncouth, like not acceptable in American society.
It's just trash.
Neck.
Facial, I mean, depending on the jobs you got,
Right.
A facial, because it's going to be 6 weeks. Henna tattoos last week.
Yeah. It's going to be your look for a while.
6 weeks.
It's a long period of time. But, like, where do you have to, if it is a lower back, like, can it be in the summertime? Do you have to go out with your shirt off at least once a week?
Right.
So there's got to be stipulations to make sure that it sticks. A couple other good ones that I saw, though, today I was looking them up. Run a pink lemonade stand in your neighborhood. I like
just
that.
Fire. I would do that. I would love that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Custom license plate for the year. That's good.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
I like that one a lot. Yeah. So whatever it is,
I mean, with that, you could also do like a bumper sticker or something like that. That's something we could do.
That's a great idea. Bumper sticker. Well, yeah, but you have to till the year, however long, a whole year,
right?
However long it is. Yeah. So I don't know. Karaoke is another one. It's okay, depending.
I think ours belongs on a list somewhere. Like ours belongs on like that. You have to go to an open mic and fucking embarrass yourself.
I think ours is hands down one of the best last place penalties.
Oh yeah.
And I want to keep it interesting. Like we'll cycle back to knock knock jokes at some point, but I don't want to do knock knock jokes every year. But it has to be something at an open mic. It's got to be performance based. Yeah, and who knows? Maybe it'll be a song next year. Like you have to perform an a cappella song of some sort. It's going to be so fucking embarrassing every single year. We're going to record.
I'm thinking one thing that just popped into my mind is that you have to do like a 3-minute set, but you can't talk.
Okay.
Like no words for the first 3 minutes.
But then people are just going to think you're like Jonathan with an H or something like that, which, like he's done that. I swear to God.
Who is
Jonathan
with an H? That sounds familiar.
He's one of the West Palm comics. It's not his real name. He pretends. You know what I'm talking about, Vital, right? He used to do backstage a lot. Anyway.
Do I know this guy?
Anyone.
I'm not sure if you do.
What's he look like?
He's short, bald, yells a lot, does weird voices and stuff. Anyway.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about, dude. Like,
so like somebody might take it seriously. That's the thing. And as far as the open mic goes, Warren did his. He had a couple different options last year. He did his at Robot, which rest in peace, Robot Brewing Company. We hope you come back. That was the greatest open mic in South Florida. We're gonna miss that place. But man, he stepped up and did it in front of a packed house. At some point, we're going to share – I'll share the link. Once we have these episodes up on our YouTube page, we're going to include Warren's last place 5-minute knock-knock set for anybody who wants to see it. We're going to include a tag on there so you can – after you hear this podcast, you can go check out our last place penalty from last year. So, yeah, that's wrap it up for our first podcast, guys. Thank you for coming. Next week – just give you guys a little teaser for our next episode. We're going to do a couple different episodes pre-season to get you guys ready for your fantasy football league. And then we're going to be doing an episode every single Monday night before the Monday night game. We're going to have some good stuff to talk about the week before, what we have coming up on Monday night. And we're going to do a DraftKings competition amongst ourselves, and that also any listeners can participate in with us for the Monday night football games throughout the regular season. Next episode, something you guys have to look forward to, we're going to talk more about how to prepare for your draft, different roster setups, the best team names, how to name your team. I know we're going to have a big debate about that because you guys already are disagreeing about how to name your teams and what the rules are for naming your teams. But that's it for today, for our first episode. Thank you guys so much for listening to we are FantaCTE. And until next time, keep your head down.
All right. Everyone be safe.
See you guys later, man.
There you go.